Hello and welcome to yet another video. A really interesting one this time, if you ask me. If you're watching this, you've probably already seen my Prelude tier list, where I rank all Preludes in the original expansion by strength based on my experience in the game. But does my ranking hold up to reality, meaning to empirical results? Well, let's just say that in some cases I was quite horribly wrong. You might already know where I'm going with this, but for those who don't, there's an awesome YouTuber out there called Stranded Knight who made a data-driven tier list of all of the Preludes by ranking them by average elo gain when played. This means that the variable he ranks these Preludes on already takes into account the varying skill levels of the players. A large positive number basically means that a card contributes to you not only winning the game, but gaining more elo than not at the same time, while a low number means the opposite. This is to counteract the fact that worse players are likely to play worse Preludes due to a lack of experience, as well as the other way around. To get these results, Stranded Knight collected data from thousands of games on BGA with a quote-unquote simple command line tool in Python. For an absolute programming noob like me, this seems like wizardry, and not only because of that, but also because I won't go over all of his findings in this video. I highly recommend checking out his original video and channel. Both are linked in the description. Many of you will know the video as it's already a couple of months old, but for all of you who don't, I really highly recommend watching it in full. And also, please give Stranded Knight a sub. He's making awesome Terraforming Mars content. So, what am I going to do in this video? I'm going to go over the 5 biggest surprises in Stranded Knight's tier list in my opinion, and work out the reasons as for why these Preludes perform better or worse than I expected, as well as the general themes with these results. So, first of all, the biggest surprise for me was how poorly Huge Asteroid performed. Stranded Knight had to place it in D tier right next to Self-Sufficient Settlement and Donation, two really underwhelming Preludes. And I do have to stress that Huge Asteroid has had a great reputation in the scene as an enabler for the Rush playstyle. Not only do the heat bumps it provides grant you 3TR, which is much needed development early on, and help you with Terraformer, you also take steps out of the temperature track, which often takes the longest to max out. In addition, you immediately secure the first bonus bump, which grants you a heat prod that can help push the temperature even faster. All of this comes with the cost of 5MC, and I think this is the crux of the problem. For engine setups, this added cost isn't justified, and you'd much rather see more development instead of direct terraforming. And rush setups often have to count every penny in the early game. Also, all of the Preludes that grant heat prod, with the exception of Polar Industries, perform horribly, so it is safe to say that heat production is a bit overvalued. We have to factor that in as well, as Huge Asteroid is basically granting you one heat prod right off the bat. It can still be okay in certain scenarios. I mean, if rush is your only option, and especially if you have plant production cards like heather, grass, or bushes on hand that got unlocked on the temperature track, then it can definitely work out. Stranded Knight also stresses that especially Ecoline still likes this Prelude, as that corp really needs to push the temperature track fast to win the game. But in any case, Huge Asteroid is definitely not the S-tier Prelude that I and many in the community thought it is. Next up, we get to 2 Preludes that are both great and that I also identified as being great in my tier list. So why am I talking about them? Well, when I ranked Allied Bank and Business Empire, I put Allied Bank on top of them, and basically labeled it the best Prelude in the game. In my mind, the argument was clear. It takes until Gen 6 for Business Empire to just narrowly overtake Allied Bank in total MC gained, and I thought that would be enough for the latter to enable you to play cards that would improve your situation so much that you're better off in total. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Business Empire performs clearly better than Allied Bank, with them being one tier apart. In general, Stranded Knight finds that MC Prod is really valuable and probably worth more than we all gave it credit for. In another video of his, he finds that Hackers isn't even as bad as we all made it out to be. So in general, the more MC Prod the better. I mean, that was already obvious, but the extent of which MC Prod contributes to winning games was something I definitely underestimated, and that's why Business Empire is generally better than Allied Bank. The prelude I always thought of as underwhelming was Smelting Plant. I and many other players didn't like it that much, as we'd optimally like to get our oxygen bumps with greeneries, and not with a one-off prelude. In addition to the oxygen bumps, you get 5 steel, which I always thought of as handy, but didn't consider that highly. In my mind, Smelting Plant just was an unfortunate mix of bonuses. The 2 TR didn't make it a top contender for the greatest development prelude, the steel wasn't as much starting capital as other preludes could provide, and I also didn't rate it highly in a rush scenario. But it turns out that the combination of these factors still make it quite strong, as Stranded Knight placed it in B tier with great preludes such as Acquired Bank and Experimental Forest. And I can see a few reasons why. While a prelude like Supply Drop grants way more instant starting capital, it can be hard to spend it all due to a lack of building and space tax. It's way easier to spend the 5 steel Smelting Plant provides to most optimally use the prelude. Also, while I'd love to take more oxygen bumps with efficient greeneries, often my opponent has the same plan and an even better setup for that. So I shouldn't discount Smelting Plant just because of that. I will try to pick it more often in the future and figure out in which situations I like it best. One general rule of thumb that can be deferred from Stranded Knight's tier list is that MC Prod, Ocean Placements, and Card Draw make really good preludes. Especially the fact that Card Draw seems to make such an impact surprised me quite a bit. All preludes that grant any kind of direct card draw end up in C tier or above, and especially the great performance of Biolab at the top of C tier kinda surprised me. Stranded Knight comes to the conclusion that direct card draw seems to be undervalued, and the fact that ocean placing preludes which can also be used to draw cards end up so high supports this thesis. In the end, cards are the most limiting resource in the game, and if you have a bad starting hand, card draw helps out way more than any other bonuses. Before we get to the last surprising fact about the empirical Prelude tier list, I have to mention how well Ecology Experts performs. But here, I think it is absolutely clear why. A prelude's average elo gain only moves if a prelude is picked. A game in which a prelude is picked and lost will most likely have a negative impact on that prelude's average elo gain, and if that prelude is picked and the game is won, then the opposite will happen. Ecology Experts is a prelude that is great if and only if you have a card like kelp farming, or trees on hand, and if you don't, it's pretty atrocious. But nearly everyone knows this, so it's almost never picked when there's no combo card for it. And as I explained, games where it isn't picked do not influence its average elo gain. And lastly, I need to apologize to all of you fellow Jovian-enjoyers. IO Research Outpost and Galilean Mining are definitely not as bad as I made them out to be. Both of them still have a negative average elo gain, so picking them still means you're more likely to lose elo, but it's a minuscule impact, so that means they are more or less right around average. By comparison, the worst preludes in the game, Society Support and Biosphere Support, have an average elo gain that is 10 times as bad. So why do Galilean Mining and IO Research Outpost perform so average? I think we need to look at them separately. We can compare Galilean Mining with Business Empire, a prelude that itself performs better than I expected. Seemingly, a hit to your starting capital isn't too bad if it is sufficiently compensated by production. Huge Asteroid does not achieve this, but Galilean Mining seemingly does. For IO Research Outpost, I think many factors come together. We already learned that card draw is better than expected. In addition, I think IO Research Outpost also benefits from an effect similar to what we noted when discussing Eco Experts. It's a very specific prelude. In fact, it's very specifically geared towards engine. The titanium prod, the card draw to look for combo pieces, and especially both tags to enable set combos are factors that can really help engine players. Rush players, however, will probably just not pick this prelude, and these would be the cases in which the prelude would most likely perform poorly. One last observation to make is that the range of strengths of preludes reaches further down than up. Stranded Knight sorted the preludes in bands of 0.5 average elo gain differential, and there were simply no Preludes that reached S tier. F tier, however, was reached, and it is no surprise by what Preludes: biosphere support and society support. These Preludes are truly that atrocious. But that's it. These were, in my opinion at least, the biggest surprises when going through the empirical tier list by Stranded Knight. Once again, please check out his original video linked in the description. He goes into way more detail discussing these placements and potential reasons as to why certain Preludes have performed poorly or great. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing. I hope I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one.